Salams and welcome. Thank you for joining me in part number 77 of the Ansari series. And we're looking at the principle of unity in the moral and spiritual transformation of Islam, compiled the works and thoughts of Dr. Fazlur Rahman Ansari, rahmatullah alayh, beautifully compiled by Dr. Abdul Qadir Chogli. And you can get copies of the books from the Ahsan Academy of Research in Springs in Gauteng, South Africa, or from Shelfcraft from Sutherland Ridge in Pretoria from Gauteng province in South Africa. Right, so we saw in the previous previous video, that in Quran chapter number 57, verse number 20, we read, "Know you all that the life of this world is but play and amusement, pomp and mutual boasting. The nafs ammara, the base self, the animal self within us, the ego, is embedded in the human personality and it takes different forms." Here we have been told that if Muslims want to be sincere, if Muslims want to be loyal to the one true God, if Muslims want to be loyal to the Prophet ﷺ, who is the leader of this ummah at all times, then they cannot bring about anything which pertains to the personal interest. You've got to leave your personal interest aside. You've got to leave your ego aside. You've got to leave your personality one side, because the Quran tells us very clear in chapter number 9, verse number 24, the Quran tells us, "Proclaim, if your parents and offspring, your brothers, your wives and kindred, the wealth that you have gained, the commerce in which you fear a decline, or the dwellings in which you delight are dearer to you than Allah and His beloved Prophet ﷺ, and the striving in His cause, then wait until punishment descends upon you from Allah, and Allah does not guide the rebellious." If this is the case, according to Dr. Fazlur Rahman Ansari, we are then committing shirk. We are associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is a very, very serious problem. The other problem which causes a disruption in the unity is the creation of meaningless, purposeless, groundless, and aimless theological questioning and bickering. Sometimes you see some of these people arguing about things, and I find it very confusing. I just switch off. Sometimes you see so many channels on YouTube, this one arguing about this point and that one arguing about that point. And sometimes I wonder, what are they arguing about? The Muslim world has got more bigger crisis than what they are arguing. They are just trying to inflate their own ego. They are just trying to show, what, I'm better than you, or I'm more intelligent than you, or my point of view. I say, you are arguing about such a small, irrelevant thing. Maybe to you it's a big thing. But as far as I'm, as an ordinary viewer is concerned, I regard it as irrelevant. I say there's so much bigger issues affecting the Muslim Ummah. There's poverty, there's lack of leadership. We need to understand what is going on globally. Why have we lost this custodianship? We are the Khalifatullah. We are the vicegerents. We need to focus on those things, not fight over this tiny bickering, spending hours and hours. And then it's confusing the people. As we are watching, we are getting confused. Imagine the youngster, imagine the youth. If an old person like me is getting confused, imagine what the youth are going through. So we need to understand that what we are posting on YouTube and social media about all this bickering just to get a fan club. If you're worrying about a fan club, rather focus. Who must be the best fan club? Be a fan club of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That is the only fan club that is worth it. We must become Ahlul Quran, the family of the Quran, and be Ahlul Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the family of the Nabi Sallallahu. We must be a fan club of the Quran, and must be a fan club of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Once you have that focus, then you leave everything else aside. If you don't want to leave it aside, then your ego is a problem. So ask yourself, what are you doing wrong? Because the Quran tells us very clearly in chapter number 30, verses number 31 to 32, "It does not behove you to become mushrik disbelievers and divide yourselves into different sects, rejoicing in that which is you." You cannot divide yourself. If you create problems among yourselves in connection with your Iman and your Islam, then you will be counted as mushrikeen and not muwahhideen. The word muwahhideen, Dr. Ansari explains, it means believers in Tawheed. Because if you are divided, you can no longer be the concept of Tawheed. Each group and each sect will say, I am right and the others are wrong. We are right and they are wrong. That means you have divided yourself. You are no longer an ummah. The ummah is fractured. This is a form of shirk against which we have been warned. And the Quran tells us very, very clearly in Surah Al-Imran, chapter number 3, verse 105 to 106, never become like the previous ummahs of previous prophets. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them clear guidance, they still differed with one another For such people, there is a great chastisement on the day when some faces will be brightened and other faces will be blackened. But what have we done? So Dr. Ansari is asked, what have we done? History shows that Islam came to a people no more divided than the Arabs. The Arabs are very, very divided. They were divided by tribalism, which ensured hostility and fighting. They could shed blood over the smallest things. The Quran tells us the greatest, or at least Islam shows us that the greatest achievement of Islam was to combine these different warring tribes into one single brotherhood. All the warring factions, the Ansar and Muhajir combined, the various tribes in Makkah came together, the various tribes around the hundreds of different tribes, they all came under the banner of Islam, because the Quran tells us in chapter 49 verse 10, the believers are but a single brotherhood. So any person who becomes a believer, ipso facto, becomes a member of the brotherhood and has to deal with a fellow Muslim as a brother, as the Prophet ﷺ so beautifully told us in a wonderful hadith. The feeling of a Muslim for his brother is like one part of the body that has a feeling for the other part. If one part of the body feels hurt, then the whole body feels hurt. Now, where are those people who have concern and love for the Ummah in this way? And I'm not just talking about Palestine, I'm talking about the entire Ummah. The Ummah is in pain and is in suffering. Not only physical suffering, but also intellectual suffering. We need to reinvigorate our spiritual understanding of Deen al-Islam and our love for the Quran and for the love for Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and inculcate the love for Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala in our heart, mind, body and soul. The Quran says that this community that has been raised with this mission is not based on race, language, territory or color. It is a community based on one ideal towards which they strive under one banner. As the Quran tells us in chapter number 61, verse number 4, that Allah loves that Muslim. Allah loves that the Muslim should combine into a wall of steel and then strive for the cause of Islam. You must be a firm, strong wall. You cannot be a fractured wall. If individuals want to fight in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as individual, it has very little merit in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You must combine yourself into a firm, strong wall. The companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam heard the message, they assimilated the message, they absorbed it, and they threw away the egos. They shut the egos down. Everyone has got an ego, but you've got to voluntarily put the ego down to say what is better. Very famously, when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, towards the end of his life, he told his grandson Utama bin Haritha, the son of Zayd bin Haritha, who was martyred in the battle against the Roman Empire. I think it was the Battle of Muta, right? And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then sent the entire army from Medina to go fight the Roman army. And who did Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam put as the general, the 5-star general of that army? Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam put an 18-year-old teenager, his adopted grandson, Usama bin Haritha, the son of his adopted son, Zayd bin Haritha. Now here's an 18-year-old teenager who is sitting on a horse, who is standing in front of the army. And behind him, there's thousands of the people. And behind him, among those thousands of the people, are the most senior Sahaba. Umar bin al-Khattab and Bilal radiallahu anhu, Salman Farsi, all these giants. Imagine what they were going through. They were saying, what is this youngster? In today's time, we'll say, hey, who is this Laitiki? He knows nothing about warfare. Why must we follow him? So the egos, what they did, they put the ego down. You know why they put the ego down? Because they said, we will follow this 18-year-old, not because he's an 18-year-old, we will follow him because our Nabi told us to follow him. Because we love our Nabi, we will follow what our Nabi tells us. And that is why they put the ego down and they followed an 18-year-old teenager at the head of an army where there were the senior companions of the Sahaba behind him, and they put the ego down. Otherwise, each one could have said, I'm a sheikh and I'm a sheikh. There would have been a big fight. But they say, no, love for Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam comes first. Stay well, look after yourself. Alhamdulillah.